Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining this week's community conversation. Today, we have with us Paige Dixon with Moms Demand Action, and we will be talking today about the intersection of gun violence and domestic violence. And we are so excited that you are here with us today. Paige, could you talk to us a little bit about Moms Demands Action and kind of how it became such a huge national movement?
So thank you so much for having us here today. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our history. So for those of you who don't know, Moms Demand Action, we are a nonpartisan grassroots volunteer network of mothers and others. We're part of Everytown for Gun Safety, the nation's largest gun violence prevention organization with nearly 6 million supporters. So we fight for gun safety everywhere from city councils to corporate boardrooms to Congress, and we work to beat back the gun lobby extremist agenda at every turn. And that's a lot of work, and trust me, it's a whole lot of fighting. So plenty of Moms Demand Action volunteers are gun owners ourselves. It's a myth that we aren't. We are just advocating for common sense gun laws. And that's one of the reasons that I actually joined Moms Demand Action. I joined in 2018. I spoke at March for Our Lives as a mother. It really bothered me to see my children, talk to me about having to hide in their classrooms from gunmen. And I felt bad that our children had to take to the streets and advocate for their lives. And so it really pushed me to join the movement.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And before we get too into this topic, I just want to kind of give a trigger and content warning that, of course, some of the things we talk about today may be triggering for some folks. So just a warning about that. We also will have the chat feature available for people to ask questions on this live. So feel free to do that as well. And Paige, so what are some of like the main goals and missions of Moms Demand Action? Do you all focus more on policy or advocacy? What does that exactly look like?
So it's a combination of a lot of things. We basically organize, and part of passing common sense gun laws is to get officials elected that understand that we need them. And so we have actually been participating in a lot of elections, local, state level, and national, just trying to get common sense candidates who are for common sense gun laws elected. And I'll read you some of our stats. So in 2018, we launched a program for candidates willing to campaign for stronger gun laws. So if you were with us, we were going to organize and work for you. So of the 3,000 plus gun sense candidates, both Republicans and Democrats, it's important to note about Moms Demand is we are a nonpartisan organization. If you get why we need common sense gun laws, we are for you. So over 3,000 plus gun sense candidates, both Republican and Democrats who run for state and federal office, more than 1,000 were elected up and down the ballot. And that number probably has increased since we are in 2021. So last year alone, our volunteers spent countless hours campaigning virtually and making more than 3.7 million calls. So if you look on Twitter and you look up the hashtag moms are everywhere, you see us. I mean, we're block walking and we are phone banking, and we're out there really working for candidates that believe in what we're trying to make a reality in our society. At the end of the day, everyone wants to come home safe, and that's not a blue issue or a red issue. You want to go to Walmart and you want to come home from going to Walmart. You want your kids to go to school and get off that bus in the afternoon. And so we're really pushing for things that make sense. For a very long time, we weren't allowed to study gun violence within this country. And so we, didn't have a lot of data, still don't have a lot of data on these things. But all that we do know is when there are more weapons in a space, there tends to be more accidents.
Yes. And so I'm curious to know, was there kind of an incident that sparked this organization? Did it start kind of like with one person, or did it start with like a group of people? Because the platform is huge. If you look at their social media, Moms Demand Action, their website, they're everywhere. So I'm just kind of curious to know, was there one specific incident that sparked the need for this organization, or did it just kind of come about as a community?
It really launched after after, you know, our shootings within our schools in this country. That was where it was rooted in. And seeing some of the incidents like Parkland and such and so forth, and just seeing the need for moms to get out there and advocate for common sense gun laws. And, you know, you want to stop a gunman before he gets to the school. And so we started trying to figure out, how do we prevent that from happening? What laws need to be in place in order for us to be effective in making sure that our children are safe at schools?
Awesome. Thank you so much for the work that y'all do. You do amazing work. Um, so the statistics show that Americans are about 25 times more likely to be killed by guns in America than any other developed nation. And about 100 people are killed by guns every day in America. So what are some of Moms Demand Action's main policy solutions as far as like waiting periods and red flag laws? Can you talk to us a little bit about red flag laws? Because I know that's important in the work that you all do.
So red flag laws is very important to us because it basically, you know, if people were convicted of domestic violence, we want to make sure that those individuals aren't able to obtain a weapon, or they have to surrender their weapon. We're also finding that a lot of times when people who are convicted of domestic violence are asked to surrender their weapons, the ball's dropped on that a lot of times, and there's no follow through. So we try to work with local organizations like our police department to figure out, you know, how do we get the follow through to happen on that? I remember having a conversation with my local police department, and they were saying, if it's, you know, it's scary for the victim that the person who has committed this crime has a weapon, it's also scary for us to go and enforce that, because if that person is, you know, deemed, you know, a loose cannon, can be violent, you know, we're afraid as well. And so we try to work with local leaders and legislators to just say, hey, we need these things in place. And a lot of times here in Texas, things do become very political, and we revert back to, this is not a red or blue issue. At the end of the day, you know, gun violence happens to everyone, regardless of party lines. And so we just want people to see that. So we organize a lot. Like I said, we phone bank. A lot of our moms have been down in Austin. This is the 87th Texas legislature. And a lot of our moms have been down in Austin fighting for a lot of these common sense gun laws, like red flag laws. Also, we want background checks, waiting periods. Currently, you know, people can buy weapons through private sales. We just want better ways to track these things, and people who shouldn't have weapons, we want to ensure that they don't get their hands on weapons.
Right. And the Laudenberg Amendment, I know that one's also important as well, which ties to domestic violence. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
So basically, if you're convicted of domestic violence, you're supposed to not be able to purchase a weapon. And if you have one, you're supposed to surrender the weapon. That goes back to what we talked about with working with local law officials to make sure that there's a follow through on that. And a lot of times we're finding where there isn't, you know, or law officials, like I said, they were like, well, it's, you know, it's dangerous for you, it's dangerous for us. So trying to figure out, how do we work with our local officials to make sure that these things actually happen and we close some of the loopholes in those spaces.
Yes. And you mentioned loopholes, which one of the loopholes is the boyfriend loophole. So is that still a thing in Texas as far as a law, or has that something that has been addressed already?
I believe it still is in Texas. I know that it is in many other states. And basically, Lord, it makes my eyes hurt when I think about, because, you know, that's the whole premise of our organization, is common sense gun laws. And so basically what it states is that if you commit domestic violence against your wife, you cannot buy a weapon, or you'll have to surrender the weapon that you have, but not against your girlfriend. And and I think I'm probably just so frustrated because we are in the 87th legislature, and there are so many crazy things that are coming out of Austin. And y'all, sometimes the things don't even make sense. Like last legislative session, there was actually a bill called Guns Everywhere. And so, you know, just stay cognizant, stay on the lookout, and pay attention.
Yes, because that boyfriend loophole, of course, puts our clients in our communities in danger, because people who experience domestic violence are not always married, most times not married. So
Yeah.
Hopefully
So
that is
'cause
something that is addressed.
I experienced domestic violence. I actually had an abusive marriage. I think we've talked about this before.
Mhm.
And it was actually a women's shelter when I was in Savannah, Georgia. I was currently in the military, and I was in Savannah, Georgia, and it was a women's shelter that came along and helped me to get a restraining order, because those are things that you can't afford. Most people can't afford to get a restraining order. And also, the Lautenberg Amendment was, of course, in play in Georgia, but it was very strange when we talk about loopholes, because the judge, when you're in the military, if you're not able to possess or purchase a weapon, you have to be discharged. And so this judge was right outside the military base and wanted to save the careers of, a lot of soldiers. And so there was a loophole and she gave him grace. And so what that looked like for me was barricading my door in my home every night and, sleeping on my sofa in fear, and then finding out my ex-husband had indeed obtained a weapon. And so there are all kinds of catch-22s and loopholes that we have to fight and advocate for victims of domestic violence, because that's a very serious thing. You have someone who, in my case, my ex-husband did try to kill me, and so the last thing that he needed was a weapon.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think one thing that's extremely common, especially in America, is how often we hear about mass shootings. And those are just ones that we hear about. There's ones that go on every single day. And so I think when we do think of gun violence, most people's minds go to mass shootings. But of course, that can cause us to forget about the harsh realities about everyday gun violence. So what do you think is the cause for that? Like, why do you think people view gun violence through that lens of mass
So
shootings?
Yeah, so I'm smiling because I think one of the biggest, factors is that as Americans, we have a super short attention span. That's one. We are very selective about what we pay attention to and care about. And the other thing is, not only is that true for us, it's very true for the media. And so I think that when we think about these things, the reason that our mind goes directly to mass shootings is because that's what gets the most publicity. Also, because of the restrictions to study gun violence in America, we simply just didn't have, we don't have a lot of data. And so we don't have a place to really point to and go, look, this is the accumulation of data over the years, and this is our reality. And so sadly, that's just where we are. And we are becoming so desensitized in this country when it even comes to mass shootings. It is really like scrolling on your Facebook feed or turning on the news and finding out there's been another mass shooting, and just kind of becoming numb to it. I remember probably a year or so ago, we were trying to, in our chapter, just, make a statement every time there was a mass shooting. Sis, it was like every other day we were having to make, statements, and you run out of, giving thoughts and prayers. You get mad and you're like, I want to be active. And so I think that that's the important part of getting plugged in. I think Moms Demand Action is a great organization to plug into, because you stay cognizant of your reality and you're consciously doing work to change the things around you.
Yes. And we're going to talk a little bit later about like how people can get involved with Moms Demand Action if they're interested. And so when I was doing a little research, I was reading that some states, I think about 20 states in America, allows law enforcement officers, when they arrive to a call about domestic violence, it allows the officers to remove the weapons from a home. And so does Moms Demand Action have any work that they are doing toward those types of issues specific to domestic violence? Some states require that the weapons be removed, but then some states allow it, like if the officer feels it's necessary. And of course, in Texas, a lot of people have guns. And so is Moms Demand Action, do you all work more state by state, or is it more federal policies and laws? What do you think?
So it's a national movement. We actually fall up under every town. And so we're actually working for common sense gun laws at every single level. We're working at state, working at federal, and really trying to assist legislators, lawmakers that are helping us to push the agenda of common sense gun laws, and also spotlighting those who are not. And so it is not just a Texas movement, it is a national movement towards gun safety.
Great. And so we talked about Moms with Men in Action. I have a little bit of familiarity with you all. And so what are some of you all's like main events every year that you do to raise awareness? For us, we focus heavily in October with Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and then April for Sexual Assault Awareness Month. So what are some big events that you all do? Have things been virtual as far as, well, are you planning to continue to do virtual events? How does that all look for you all?
So we are, to answer the question about virtual, I think our chapters are doing different things, whatever is comfortable for them. I know at the state level, we have been doing mostly virtual, and just trying to ensure that everyone, is safe or feels safe enough to do in person. So that's one thing. The other things with major things that we do within our organization to spotlight gun violence and gun violence awareness, we actually do every summer around June, we do Wear Orange. That was the first event that I ever organized with Moms Demand Action. And basically that is to spotlight survivors of gun violence, and we wear orange. And the reason we wear orange is because, when you think about hunters, orange is an easy color to spot. And so we basically focus that entire event around survivors and bringing awareness to gun violence. The other thing that we do is, of course, we do advocacy. We do an advocacy week. We just got done here in Texas. We center that around our legislative session opening, and we gear up for all the bills that are about to come out of Austin. We organize so that we can track them. We organize when we're going to go down to Austin and fight for certain things. We communicate with our legislators so we could try to stop bad bills from ever getting voted out the House or the Senate. And so that's two of the things that I know that we do within our organization.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And what do you think normal everyday people, maybe people who don't work in the field of domestic violence, or they're not quite ready to take a step like joining an organization like Moms Demand Action, what do you think the general public can do to be more proactive when it comes to addressing this issue? Let's say they're not ready to join an organization, or they're not quite comfortable with that yet. What do you think some everyday things could be that they could do to raise awareness?
So, just some everyday things that you could do to help and also to raise awareness. If you have a weapon in your home, make sure it's secure. Try to make sure the ammunition is separate from the weapon. Gun locks, I know here where I'm at in Louisville, Texas, we can actually go to our local police department and they provide gun locks. We have another organization, a sister organization called Be Smart, that will actually come into your school and talk to young children about gun safety, about not touching weapons or playing with weapons. So that's one of the things. I know that I have an app on my phone called 5 Calls, and basically that links me to my state and federal leadership. And so you have to pay attention to some of the bills that are coming out of Austin. Sometimes they actually do make it to the news. There are some really wild ones that never ever make it to news, but watch for those and connect and call your legislators. A lot of times legislators do listen to voters. And so if you call them, and say again, hey, this is a bad idea. We don't want guns in the hands of educators. We want red flag laws. We want that follow through. And so that's something that you could do where you don't have to join the organization, but you can do your part to make sure that we have gun sense, we have common sense gun laws within our states, cities, and so forth.
Yes, and I think one thing that you mentioned that was super, super important is if you have a weapon, making sure that your weapon is safe and secure, especially if there are children in the home. For domestic violence victims, the chance of lethality is raised like 500% just with the presence of a weapon. Like just a weapon being in a home doesn't even have to be being used. And so Just a weapon being present can cause a lot of danger, a lot of accidents. And so just making sure, of course, it starts with you. And then I think some people have an idea of when they think about writing their legislators, I think they think, you know, that they're way up here and I'm way down here and they won't listen to me. They don't care about what I have to say. But
They do listen to you, like because
do.
at the end of the day, most of your legislators want to keep their job. And so
Yes.
there is power in numbers, and Moms Demand, definitely we capitalize on that. We organize and we let people know we're voting for you. And we also have, I talked to a friend last night that was down in Austin fighting some legislation that unfortunately passed. But as moms, I remember going to advocacy day, we were talking to our legislators on both sides of the aisle, and we would leave them cookies, because it's good for them to understand we're moms, we have kids, we're in the community, we're fighting for everyone, and really to humanize ourselves. And legislators, they want to be reelected. And if we create a norm that certain things within our society are not acceptable, they really adhere to what we want. And so we have found with legislators on both sides of the aisle, we had one legislator, we were like, that guy's never going to vote against this. But we really talked to him as just mothers, as community members, and he did. He ended up voting, against a bill that was just horrific. And so that's what people miss. When your legislators get tons of calls, hey, I'm against this from everyone, they really will adhere to what you're saying, what you're advocating for. And so that's one of the biggest things that we do during these legislative sessions is we organize folks. We let them know it's time to call legislators. This bill is coming up for a vote. We need you to reach out. We need you to speak up. And so that's what folks miss a lot of times is our legislators are public servants, and we have to let our voices be heard.
Definitely. And I know for myself, I've been to the Capitol a couple of times and it was with an organization. So if you want to meet with a representative face to face, but you're intimidated or you're scared or nervous, you can definitely join an organization like Moms Demand Action where you go in groups and you get that experience. So definitely talk to your representatives, write them, call them. They do care about what you have to say. And so that's something that all of us could do as well. Of course, voting, that's important always. And so, yes, there's things that everyone can do, just like with any other cause. This is the same. So there's things that each of us can do every day to raise awareness around these issues for sure. And so what are some ways that people can get involved with Moms Demand Action, and what are kind of like some volunteer opportunities? Do you have to meet a certain criteria to join Moms Demand Action? How does that look?
You don't have to meet any criteria to join. It's a really amazing organization. I have found some of my best friends through this org. You can look us up online, and that will also in turn tell you where chapters are available near you. And you can plug in. And if you don't, want to be a leader, you can definitely just be a general member and join our organization. I mean, I will say that a lot of times when you are cognizant of certain things, like there being a need for common sense gun laws, you're looking for a group to plug in, especially here in North Texas. Like, we are a rare breed. And so it has been so beneficial for us to have each other. Like I said, the first event that I ever put on in my life was Wear Orange, and it was very nice. In that we got to reach out to survivors, really give them a platform to speak and to be heard. We have an entire survivor team where we love on them and check in on them. We have moms that I remember going with my moms, and we were going to school boards, to try to make sure that weapons were kept out of our schools for the safety of our children. We've just advocated so many spaces. We've worked hard here in Texas for candidates that support, the common sense gun law agenda. And really, it's a great way to plug in and do something. And I felt like for me, in 2018, the more that I plugged into organizations like Moms Demand and made phone calls and blocked walk and helped out with events, it was my way of fighting. And it was a space to put a lot of, my frustration with the things that I was seeing around me. And so I think that, in that respect, Moms Demand is a really amazing organization to become a part of.
Great. Thank you so much. And yes, if anyone's interested in joining Moms Demand Action or just simply checking out what they're about, you can just go to momsdemandaction.org, and they're very active on social media. So check out their Instagram and Facebook pages for sure.
And
If you
Twitter.
are interested in Twitter.
We tweet so much, like every 2 seconds. Every 2 seconds, I get a Moms Demand Action tweet. I mean, it'll keep you in the loop. They're like, did you see this bill that just came out? Did you see such and such? So, I mean, if you really want to get plugged in, go to our Twitter.
Sounds good. Well, Paige, is there anything else that you would like to add before we close out today? I don't think we have any questions so far, but is there anything you'd like to add that maybe we didn't address?
No, I really just want to say thank you guys so much for being a community partner with us. You know, that's been very important for a lot of the things that we do, because gun violence actually intersects with a lot of things here locally. And so we're really just so thankful for you all as partners, so thankful for this opportunity to come and speak and to be heard. And so thank you so much for all that you do for our community members.
Thank you so much for being here. We really, really enjoyed it. And so just to close out, of course, as we've discussed, gun laws are extremely important when it comes to saving lives and preventing bad things from happening. So guns can also be used, of course, as tools of coercion and abuse and intimidation. And so if anyone is interested in joining a Moms Demand Action, please take a look at their website at momsdemandaction.org. You can find out how you can help or how you can get involved. Paige, thank you so much again for joining us today. And thank you for all of the work that you all do as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.